Hey guys, and welcome to my own little how to play Invoker video. Kinda lost my train of thought there, but that's okay. So yeah, I'm gonna take you through my 10 steps that will help you become a better Invoker player. I'm no expert myself, so I can't like teach you, how to become amazing, but I can teach you how to become at least fairly good in pub games, which is what most people play anyway. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and we'll jump right into this. Step number 1. So to begin, we have step 1, which is kind of an interesting thing. It doesn't actually involve the Dota 2 game. I suggest to you highly that you do this, but it's not necessary. There is a website you can go to. I'll have an annotation and a link in the description. It's called Invoker Trainer. Basically, you go to the site, and it's a very simple thing where you practice invoking the different spells. This helped me a lot. You don't even have to do a whole lot of it. I spent about 5 minutes 2 different times at different days, and it helped me a lot. It helps you memorize the different types of spells, so you're not sitting there with this thing open going, I wonder which one. So, it helps you a lot, and you really need to memorize your spells, otherwise you're not going to do good on Invoker. That's pretty much, that's just how it works. Step 2. Moving on to step 2, we have kind of a whole different bunch of things kind of all mixed together. So to begin with, we have the leveling order. Now, I am doing a Quas Exort build. I find it, at least in pubs, it is pretty much the only way to go with Invoker. I've seen several Invokers try and run Quas Wex. Sometimes they'll do really well beginning game, even better than I can possibly do. But by late game, they've fallen off and can do 0 damage, and it's cost us. Quas Exort build allows you to do damage and generally be less of a team fighter, but more of a killer, which is what you kind of need to be able to do when you don't have, talking to all your teammates and whatnot. But there is still team fight potential, so that's what makes this build better, I think. So basically how it works is 4-1-4. 4 in Quas, 1 in Wex, and 4 in Exort before you really start, leveling the other points up. So basically, how it works is you focus Exort, and then you focus Quas second, and finally Wex. You only put 1 point in Wex before you've maxed out the other 2, and this usually comes around level 6 when you level it, but you can do it earlier if you're worried about getting ganked, so just keep that in mind. If you're worried about getting ganked, say you have invis heroes, etc., lots of stuns, then you can always level it a little bit earlier, and that's okay. Now, I recommend that you go into the guide section and follow this guide. It's the guide I use. You don't have to follow it, but it kind of works out. So what lane do you want to go into? You want to go into mid lane. You have to go into mid lane, or at least try and get a solo lane. The few times that I have run with someone else in my lane, it has really not worked out. So just keep that in mind. You want to be in a solo lane. I've never solo laned with him, but I think that it could work out. But preferably mid lane, because you want to be able to gank later in the game. So that's pretty much all you need to do about that. Step 3. Alrighty, so the final step before we actually start getting into some more of the gameplay is you want your build. So what is your build? Now, you can follow this guide to a T, and you'll probably do alright. But personally, I like to run a different guide for several reasons. So, first of all, I keep to this. Getting 1 Blades of Attack, a Tango, and Iron Branch pretty much sets you up very well. You don't need a lot of regen, so you might be able to skip out on the Tango if you feel like you're really good at not getting harassed, but it's still nice to have just in case. So after that, I build straight into Phase Boots. Phase Boots will give you extra movement speed, allowing you to gank later on, and I'll cover that as well. If you feel you need a clarity, you can grab it. I generally skip all this stuff and go straight to Force Staff after that. Force Staff is really good for escaping ganks and also getting in there and ganking. It's altogether a really nice item. You can also take Yul's Scepter of Divinity if you want to Sunstrike a little bit easier for those who are not that good with Sunstriking. But again, you have to be close range. But it can do a shit ton of damage, I know for a fact. Orchid, I've never used any of these other items to be perfectly honest, but they all have their good, uses. If you don't know when the best time is to buy them, just read what this guy's written underneath it. It's a great guide, and it'll help you a lot. So after I've built Force Staff, I generally skip everything and go straight to Ags. I'm sorry, but Ags is a necessity on Invoker. Without it, you will not do that good. Well, you can do good, but for this particular guide, I'm trying to teach you how to play an Invoker that appears to be skilled and know his spells, not one that just uses 2 or 3 spells. So keep that in mind. You want to go straight into Ags, and then after that, keeping with the whole skilled idea, I build Refresher Orb. I find it really works out in the end. But you can always build Eye of Scotty if you're not so certain of yourself. Eye of Scotty's a great ability, gives you crazy auto attack damage. People probably won't like you for it, but it'll work. Scythe of Ice can also work if you have a very farmed carry that you're worried about. And then Lincoln Sphere and Blink Dagger are also good choices. Step 4. Alrighty guys, so this next section is a little bit of a short one. Basically, it's all about farming up your Ags. Now, I talked about this earlier in the build part of this video, but what you really... I have to reiterate this. When you get to lane, you need to farm as fast as you possibly can. The better you farm, the faster you can get your Ags, the better you can help your team. If you take too long to get the Ags, then... while you can invoke your combos for late game, it takes a lot longer, and it can really hurt you. And your teammates will get pissed at you if you're not helping them kill the teams or whatever. If you just stick with early game combos, you're not going to do well. So, basically, one more time, farm as fast as you can. I don't really know how to tell you how to work out the timing, you just got to figure out that yourself. He's not a terribly hard last hitter, but he can take some getting used to. I'm a terrible last hitter, so I'll probably miss all these last hits, not to mention the fact that I'm talking. But just practice at it and get good at telling when it is time to last hit. Keep in mind that it takes 5 hits to kill from a tower to kill a melee creep, and it takes, I believe, 3 to kill a ranged creep, but I could be wrong on that, it might be 2. So anyway, that's step 4. Step 5. Alrighty guys, so this is step 5, and it is escaping ganks. Now, this is very important because ganks do happen. Even in pub games, I know it sucks, but... yeah, so this is an example of what not to do. Now, in this case, I was level 8 and hadn't leveled my W yet, because I was following kind of a strange guide. And as you can see here, Chaos Knight and Lina are coming in. I made the mistake of trying to turn around and cold snap, which may have let me escape, but in the end, as you can see, I get stun locked down and do die, giving away, it wasn't first blood, but it was a kill to them, so they could catch up to us. So, that's what not to do. Do not let yourself get confused on what to do. You know, stay calm. If someone's ganking you, I'm going to show you exactly what you gotta do. Alrighty, so now I'm going to show you what to do properly when trying to escape a gank. There's several different options based on if you're following the build that I gave you earlier. There are many different ways to escape a gank, but before I go into that, what you always need to be doing is always be looking around on the mini-map, on the regular map. Always be prepared for that sudden arrival of an enemy on your screen. Always be looking out for it, always be aware. I know it can be difficult, but you'll get better at it through the practice of Sunstrikes, which is another step later on. If you're always looking, then you could be prepared to escape. Now, early on, you will not have a Force Staff or Phase Boots, especially early on, and sometimes you will get ganked that early, so be prepared for it. So, when that does happen, you need to know how to invoke Ghost Walk. Now, Ghost Walk lets you turn invisible. You become very, very slow, but since you're invisible, generally they won't have detection for an invoker this early on, which often deters ganks. The only thing you have to worry about is getting stun locked, which is a real problem. But even then, if you noticed in the last clip, I was stun locked twice and still could have escaped if I had Ghost Walk. So of course, you see a gank, say they're coming from up here, and you run and you realize you're not going to be able to escape. Maybe they stun you like I did in the video, so I was stuck right here. Then I got Lina stunned and hit by her ulti, and I was nearly dead, but if I had quickly just QQW then R'd, and there I am. I'm W. A little bit of a mistalk there. You're invisible, you stay invisible for a very long time, so you have a very good chance of escaping. it does make you 30% slower, but it also slows enemies near you, so it can work out. Now, there are a few things you have to continue to watch out for, which include AoE attacks, for example, Lena's Q, or Lena's Stun, for example. Those can still hit you. What you also need to watch out for is Bloodseekers, because Bloodseekers, if you're low on health, can still see you. So what else can you do to escape a gank if there's a Bloodseeker or any other example? So if we come back to lane here, Ghost Walk is probably going to be your last choice. Now when getting ganked, there are several options you can take, and here's what I would suggest to do first. First, try and phase boots away, and if that doesn't work, if you should pull out all 3 of your Wexes, because Wexes increase your movement speed. Now you only have 1 level in it, so it's not a lot, but any little small difference can count. So try 3 Wexes and phase boots. If that doesn't work, step 2 is to force staff away. If that still doesn't work and they're somehow still chasing you, you're probably gonna die, but Ghost Walk is your third option. Try and save it if you can. It's kind of a last resort sort of thing. I mean, altogether, it gives you a lot of escapability. Step 6. Alrighty guys, so our next section is Sunstriking. So this is the big deal with Quas Exort Invoker. It gives him the ability to kill someone who is escaping one of your friends. For example, now Phoenix obviously evades my Sunstrike here. I didn't actually place it because I saw that coming. But it takes some practice. Once you get some practice, hitting a running away target that's running in a straight line is fairly easy. For example, in this situation, as you can see, Earthshaker is running away. So I can't really tell you where exactly to place it. All I can tell you is you need to practice a lot on doing this. Try on bots. Just sit there with yourself at level 25 and just spam them to practice. That's how I got better. And it really helps a lot. So if I can rewind it here, you can kind of see it again. So there's me not attacking the Phoenix. So reiterating, it takes about 2 seconds for the Sunstrike to go down, so you have to place it where you think they'll be in around 2 seconds. I think it's actually 1.75 seconds. But there is some leeway with the Sunstrike, so you don't have to hit perfectly for you to get the kill. You also need to learn how much your Sunstrike is available to do damage. It does pure damage, so armor won't block it, so all you need to do is know. At level 1, it's 100, so on and so forth. All you have to do is scroll over the Sunstriking, and you see how much damage it does per instance, or per level of Exort. So just keep that in mind, practice on bots, and you'll get better. Alrighty guys, so the next step involves early game combos and just generally what you want to do early game. So this is assuming that you've gone to lane and you've started farming. So things to keep in mind when in lane is don't be afraid to harass. If they get too close to you or if they're trying to harass you, harass back. Your E's give you extra damage per instance. So you can actually do quite a bit of auto attack damage, especially early on to many other mid heroes. Don't be afraid of heroes like Sniper. I'll show you how to kill a Sniper very easily mid lane if you hate snipers with Invoker, because you can win said fight. Alright, so let's get right into the combos. There's really not a lot early game that I feel are very effective, but I will show you a few different ways. But generally, this is how it's going to work. So you have the option, this is the combo that I generally stick with until I get Ags. I will vary a bit if a tower is getting pushed or if I'm getting pushed tower, but overall I stick with Cold Snap and Sunstrike. Now why? Sunstrike, so I can be ready to Sunstrike any sort of enemy that may be escaping anywhere on the map, or if I just need it for a straight up fight with the mid hero. This also works perfectly for ganking. Cold Snap is pretty much all you need to gank early on. Now obviously there are other options. You can invoke Tornado. Tornado works. Unfortunately at level 1 it does not have a whole lot of damage, so you have to keep that in mind. What you can also do is invoke Forge Spirits. But before you have level 4 Quas, you only get 1 and it's really not worth it, but it can save you in certain situations, so just keep it in mind. Once you hit level 4 Quas though, you can invoke these things all the time, push towers, get kills, they're amazing. What you can do is invoke Cold Snap. Cold Snap plus Forge Spirits can easily get you a kill on a solo hero, so keep that in mind. But again, what I like to mainly stick with though is Cold Snap and Sunstrike. Cold Snap being first because I find it easier to press when I really need it. So basically how it works is you Cold Snap, auto attack, he gets frozen in place, and then you can drop a Sunstrike and get a kill. Now this is a perfect way to kill a sniper who's overly cocky or just a bad player. If they walk up to you and start auto-attacking you, Sunstrike them, auto-attack back. Sometimes they'll sit there and continue to auto-attack you. You can drop a Sunstrike and continue to auto-attack. That'll kill them almost every time. If you fuck up a little bit, then you might die, but generally it ends up working out. So that's pretty much early game combos. What else do you need to be doing early game? Once you get phase boots in the shop, you definitely need to go gank. All you need is phase boots and cold snap, and you can successfully gank, and I'll show you how to do that here in a minute. Okay guys, so for this step I'm going to show you the proper way to gank, and it is fairly simple with Invoker. There are a few different options, and I will tell you about them even though I generally don't use them. So when you're ganking, if you're on the Radiant side, and you should be mid lane, if you're following the rules, what you can do is the rules. They are rules now. You cannot deviate. Anyway, if you're ganking, here are a few different ways you can go. First of all, you can go in the river if they're particularly pushed up. It's an option with phase boots and cold snap. As long as you have your top laners paying attention, then you should be able to get them. But a better option is generally to go through the woods. The only thing you have to worry about is if there's wards, say like right here, for example. When ganking bottom lane, it's generally a lot harder to get a gank off bottom lane as Radiant because there's nowhere you can go into the jungle behind them. But if they are pushed up, you can come through this jungle over here and generally come up top and then come down and cold snap them from behind. That's usually what your best bet is, but it is going to be harder to gank bottom, so keep that in mind. When you're on the dire side, obviously you have a different view, so it's a little bit hard for me to show you. But top lane is extremely hard to gank, but if, say, top lane is getting extremely pushed, then you can obviously come through the jungle, come behind them, or come through this path right here, or here. So, when ganking bottom, it's gonna be a little bit more difficult. But, again, your lane's gonna be need to be pushed a little bit, so you can come through this jungle right here. That's pretty much going to be your only way to gank. And after that, you probably, once it's past, you know, landing phase, you're not going to be needing to gank too much. So anyway, I'm going to show you how a gank should go. This is when you only have phase boots. If you have force staff, it's obviously a lot easier. You can force staff in there. But basically, it's very simple. You just walk up. Assuming they don't have wards. If they have wards, they're probably going to see you coming up this way. But for example, my laner was paying attention for the most part. It kind of helps that it was Sand King, but you cold snap, auto attack, he gets stunned, and in this case, Sand King really helped a lot because he did a bunch of damage. Plus we had an Earthshaker. So what you really need to make sure of is that your top laner and or bottom laner is paying attention, because if they aren't paying attention, you're probably not going to get a kill, because by yourself, you're not going to kill them with just cold snap and auto attacks, not this early on. So another option that you have is that you can also try and Sunstrike them as they escape, which is another great option. So another last option you could do, and I don't recommend this because it's kind of lame in my opinion, but you can fully go for it if that's your sort of thing. You can invoke Ghost Walk and Cold Snap, and then just go invis and get close to them. Make sure to not get too close to them because they will see you, because you do have a slight effect when you're near other people. So just get close to them and then cold snap when your laner is like ready to attack, and then you'll get a kill very, very easily. I've done that once and I never did it again because I felt really scummy about it, but it is a great way to get a kill. So if that's your sort of thing, you can definitely do that. Step 9. Alrighty guys, so we are on step 9 now, and this is late game. So what do you want to be doing late game? Well, hopefully you have Ags by now. If you don't have Ags, you're in trouble. You should be farming up your refresher orb by now. You'll probably never get it, but depending on how well you're farming, you could get it. So basically what I'm going to go over is the combos for late game. There's one main combo that I use that is pretty much the best, and then after that there are a few others that you can do. There's a whole lot of different combos. I urge you guys to experiment. That's what I did, and I found that this is the best combo that you can do. And what it is you take Tornado plus Chaos Meteor. So the goal is to get as many of the enemy team into the tornado as possible, then drop the meteor right as they're falling, and then finally you Deafening Blast. Now it can be very tricky to pull off, but if you can get results similar to what I'm about to get here. Now obviously you need team support if you're not like really fed. So there, as you can see, I dropped the tornado, dropped the meteor. It does take a bit of timing, but I get it relatively good there, and as you can see it does massive amounts of damage. And with the help of my team, we end up winning a team fight because of it when we had been losing quite a few. This was right after I got my Ags, and it helped turn around the game quite a bit. Now obviously he had BKB because he ended up being able to escape. Well, actually he ends up not escaping, but for example, that's what can happen. Now, some other combos to consider, if I open up this window here, you can see Cold Snap will always be effective. Once you've run out of your combo, you can quickly bring in a Cold Snap to finish off that one remaining enemy or whatever. One thing to keep in mind about that combo that I just showed you is that if you're not doing well, say you're losing the game, then it can do barely any damage to the enemy team, and it's very unfortunate, so you have to worry about that. A lot of times there's nothing you can do. Just do your best, try not to die. Yeah. So after that, it's kind of just break out certain types of spells. EMP is always good to drop after that combo because it can just do that extra little bit of damage. It won't do a lot because you haven't leveled a lot in Wex, but it certainly doesn't hurt. Another thing to consider is Alacrity plus Forge Spirits. If you're trying to take down towers, that's really good. Drop the Alacrity on a carry or yourself to do extra damage because it increases your attack speed and bonus damage. Other than that, there's not a lot of whole combos. If you're running away, Ice Wall is a good choice. Possibly Tornado if it happens to be off cooldown. Other than that, you really want to stick to that main combo for killing teams. It really works very nicely. Obviously there are other combos, but that's what I personally use and have found to have great success with. Now obviously I use other combos at different points when I feel like I need it, but that's something you learn through practice. Which brings me to the final step, which is practice. To get good with Invoker, you gotta spend a lot of time, you gotta practice, you gotta know when is it a good time to do something crazy, such as force staffing into the base to try and finish off a Dragon Knight who's low on health. If you, say, have backup from a farmed carry, in this case, it can be well worth your while to try and go in there and kill this Dragon Knight, for example. In this case, that's exactly what we do, and it has minimal effects. Since 3 are already dead, the only one alive is Lena. These are things you learn through practice, so just play lots of games. I urge you to play 3 or 4 games, maybe a couple of bot games here and there, then take a break, play someone you're familiar with, and come back later so you don't burn yourself on Invoker. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it'll help you get a little bit better at Invoker. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.